I'd never heard of artisanal miners until I stumbled across this video on YouTube.
Incredible video shows 9 Congolese miners unexpectedly popping out of a collapsed gold mine and tumbling down a steep slope as onlookers cry out in joy. The video shows a man frantically digging with a spade while a group of other men stand in a large circle around him watching. All of a sudden, a miner pops out of the rubble, a rare happy ending to trapped miner story.
This video was a video of Congolese miners escaping a mining collapse. So over the next several months, I went down a deep rabbit hole.
What the fuck was just that?
And this is what I found out. That not only is this not a one-time thing, this is a way of life for the people in Congo.
The middle of war-torn country that the world seems to ignore. No matter how many postings, how much information, how many headlines you see, the world tends to ignore what happens in the Congo in different places in Africa. And this.
What did y'all just see? What was it?
The east of Congo, where the east and the southeast, where all of these minerals are coming from for the tech industry, which is an industry that is only creating more and more demand.
Are there any industrialized cobalt mines that use machinery and don't use slavery and don't use child labor and don't use these people that live in unimaginable poverty?
Nobody actually cares, you know.
Is there another source of cobalt in the world that's ethically supplied?
No.
Wow.
You won't believe it, what I discovered. Trust me.
So, as the push for green energy and electric vehicles grow, so does demand for the materials, right? The minerals that are used to power those rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. And of course, it all depends on cobalt.
The auto industry has seen a few evolutions throughout history and over time. From the genesis of it all in 1908 with the world's first commercial automobile designed by America's Henry Ford. The Model T revolutionized not only the auto industry, but the labor industry as a whole. Since then, over a century later, automobiles are still powered by a combustible engine that runs on gas. But if we're all honest, other than a few new bells and whistles on the automobile, what's changed? What other progress have we seen in the automotive industry other than setbacks?
For years, America's automakers have faced serious challenges. Now some U.S. auto executives say that their companies are nearing collapse.
Strikes, rumors and conspiracy theories.
Biden's cruel and ridiculous electrical. Think of this. He wants electric vehicle mandates that will spell the death of the U.S. auto industry. 2 years, you're all going to be out of business. You're not getting anything. I will not allow, under any circumstances, the American automobile industry to die.
America, once leaders of the auto industry and innovation, that's since changed. That is, until now. Tesla. Tesla is an automotive company that specializes in electric vehicles, powered by electric charge, unlike anything we've ever seen before. Tesla also is responsible for ushering a revolution of sorts with battery-powered electric vehicles, commonly referred to as EVs. But with that being said, just as we seen with the first automobile, where there's smoke, oftentimes there's fire.
Why did we create Tesla? What was the purpose of the company? We created Tesla to make a difference in the world. The world desperately needs sustainable transport. We want to show that electric cars are in fact better than gasoline. If you have an electric car in California, you use only you create only a quarter as much CO2 as an equivalent gasoline car. This is important because sometimes people will say, well, sure, it's an electric car, but haven't you just moved the problem of CO2 production from the car to the power plant?
The world as we know it has since changed since the first iteration of automobiles. No longer is the world resting on what was. Now we are all waiting on what will be. There comes a need for something different. Something we have never seen before. Or have we seen this before? This new revolution of technology and EVs makes no difference. What fueled the last automobile revolution was gasoline consumption, as many people became rich and wealthy from it. From oil tycoons, Saudi rulers, to politicians. And this is just a tip of the iceberg, or better yet, a tiny piece of what I'm about to reveal to you. This new evolution of EVs threatens the entire oil industry. Just because something looks good on the outside doesn't mean it looks good on the inside. The entire world is dependent on minerals that will fuel and create electric vehicles. These precious metals and minerals are essential for the development of energy storage and battery generation. But it's one mineral that's needed more than the others: cobalt. And unfortunately, cobalt is a blessing and a curse to all who possess it, especially those who possess it in vast abundance.
Cobalt started later. Cobalt really took off about 10-12 years ago. And it's in another part of the country, in the mining provinces in the southeast of the Congo.
This is so crazy to see.
This is the bottom of the supply chain of your iPhone, of your Tesla, of your Samsung. I mean, I'm just naming those companies.
Right.
It's all of them, right? All of them. We're not just picking on them. And here's what you need to know, Joe, about this video. I was the first outsider to get into this mine. And that's why it's just a really short video that I was able to take. This is an industrial cobalt mine where there's not supposed to be one artisanal miner. Now that's the term used for people who are just digging by hand as opposed to tractors and excavators. There's not supposed to be one here. That's what the story is told at the top of the chain. This mine, and I can name it, it's called Shabara. There's not supposed to be one artisanal miner here, according to the consumer-facing tech companies and EV companies buying this cobalt. Lo and behold, I walk into this place and this is what I see. There's more than 15,000 human beings crammed into that pit.
What I'm about to reveal to you will open your eyes to what is happening to a world outside of your own borders. No stone will be left unturned. In this video, I'm going to expose everything that you've been left in the dark about, like the Congo. A place that's historically broken and has no paved roads, no electricity, no functioning government. But although Congo is a place dense in innovation, it's beyond rich in minerals and the rare earth mineral cobalt that probably powers the device you're watching this video on.
The cobalt that's being mined in the Congo is in every single lithium-ion rechargeable battery manufactured in the world today. Every smartphone, every tablet, every laptop, and crucially, every electric vehicle. So you and I, we can't function on a day-to-day basis without cobalt, and 3/4 of the supply is coming out of the Congo.
Cobalt is a key ingredient in lithium-ion batteries that powers electric vehicles. It's used in the cathode of the battery, which is responsible for handling electricity relative to how much is used. The reason cobalt is treasured is because it's also heat resistant, which is important to safety. Cobalt helps extend the life of batteries, which automakers usually guarantee for 8 to 10 years on average. If this is our future, we will need a lot more batteries than we currently possess. Electric vehicles have taken over the world. They're everywhere you look. You've probably seen charts showing skyrocketing EV sales, as I'm sure you've seen charging stations everywhere from in-phase to charge point.
The oil and natural gas that we rely on for 75% of our energy are simply running out. Obviously, this cannot continue. We must look back into history to understand our energy problem. Twice in the last several hundred years, there's been a transition in the way people use energy. The first was about 200 years ago, when we changed away from wood, which had provided about 90% of all fuel, to coal, which was much more efficient. This change became the basis of the Industrial Revolution. The second change took place in this century, with the growing use of oil and natural gas. They were more convenient and cheaper than coal, and the supply seemed to be almost without limit. They made possible the age of automobile and airplane travel. Nearly everyone who is alive today grew up during this period, and we have never known anything different. Because we are now running out of gas and oil, we must prepare quickly for a third change, to strict conservation, and to the renewed use of coal, and to permanent renewable energy sources.
This new revolution that's begun is called the Green Energy Revolution, and it's become the new standard for EVs and the future. Everyone is talking about the eventual transition to green energy in an effort to combat global warming, and I mean everyone. From world leaders,
I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air.
To industry leaders around the world.
And they need global leaders to take action. Action to reduce emissions. The move from fossil fuels to renewables is happening, but we are decades behind.
We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which is a big standard that I notice Obama goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term.
Shockingly, even Pope Francis of the Catholic Church. Pope Francis recently rebuked fossil fuel companies and urged countries to make an immediate transition to renewable energy.
The Pope has this morning released an important new document on the environment and climate change. And he levels a lot of criticism at what he calls an inadequate response to the global climate change crisis. Climate change.
Scientists say climate change is accelerating.
So we're watching climate change.
Hope you will think about how your work has been affected by what we believe is going on in the climate.
Global warming's
how much warmer we get.
And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy.
Climate warming, global warming, is an existential threat to humanity. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world we don't have much time. We're going to pass the point of no return.
Even before this summer began, there were extreme heat waves.
Still not mature enough to tell it like it is.
We are approaching the climate crisis more per year for Portland, so we're watching climate change make things hotter in the Pacific Northwest.
Like the climate.
You are failing us. And if you choose to fail us, I say we will never forgive you.
Alpine glacier broke loose and roared down a mountainside in Italy.
We will not let you get away with this.
The change has been gradual.
Right here, right now, is where we draw the line. The world is waking up, and change is coming whether you like it or not.
There's a consensus of scientists, a large consensus of scientists who believe that if we haven't completely eliminated greenhouse gases or offset them completely by 2050, effectively we're inviting climate catastrophe. Do you believe there is a pathway to avoid that catastrophe, and what would it look like?
Ultimately, we can have a fully sustainable energy economy, and it's those three things: solar, wind, stationary battery pack, electric vehicles. So then, what are the limiting factors on progress? The limiting factor really will be battery cell production. So that's gonna really be the fundamental rate driver, and then whatever the slowest element of the whole lithium-ion battery cells supply chain, from mining and the many steps of refining to ultimately creating a battery cell and putting it into a pack, that will be the limiting factor on progress towards sustainability.
The science is not settled. We can all agree that the climate is warming, temperatures are going up, but we are not sure why.
Just out, a new federal report analyzing the impact for up to a foot of sea level rise over the next 30 years.
So this push to go green has become increasingly popular. This is a story I thought I knew. America, specifically the Biden administration, released incentives to entice buyers by offering electric vehicle tax credits.
That massive new spending bill also set to boost sales of electric vehicles. It includes hundreds of billions of dollars to address climate change. One program, new tax breaks for electric vehicles. Buyers could get up to $7,500 off an electric sedan priced under $55,000.
So this tax credit goes for certain models eligible for these incentives.
I don't come empty-handed to any party. I've got two new themes brought to you by the Biden White House. First, be ready for more stringent environmental regulations that push people into electronic vehicles.
With officials around the world calling for a transition to greener energy, there is one city that is being transformed to accommodate the growing demand for cobalt. The Democratic Republic of the Congo produces an estimated 70% of the world's cobalt. And most of this precious mineral comes from Congo, by way of the city Kolwezi. You see, cobalt, which is mainly produced as a byproduct of copper and nickel, was ignored for a long period of time in favor of those more in-demand minerals. But now cobalt mines are popping up everywhere. And I mean everywhere. These mines are not only growing around the city of Kolwezi, they are literally replacing the Congolese people's neighborhoods. So this is a satellite image from 2017 and 2022 that shows west of the city Kolwezi, entire streets have disappeared over the last few years due to the massive expansion of cobalt mines.
Seen with my own eyes, and what any Congolese person living in the Katanga region will tell you is they pay no heed to the human rights of the Congolese people, and they pay no heed to the environmental protection. Mining companies, especially the Chinese ones, dump toxic effluents in the earth, the air, the water. I have seen villages with children playing in the dirt covered in sulfuric acid powder that is wafting over the entire countryside from mineral processing plants.
The world has turned all its attention to cobalt for its essential role in lithium-ion batteries for phones and electric vehicles, or EVs, and a blind eye to the genesis of batteries. With the world's attention on electric transition, there is nothing the world won't do in order to achieve this so-called green energy revolution. And I mean nothing. How far are we willing to go as humans for the very things we desire, yet don't need? Is it worth relocating an entire village from their home? Is it worth the total destruction of humans? The Democratic Republic of the Congo, as I mentioned earlier, produces an estimated 70% of the world's cobalt, and most of it comes from the city of Kolwezi. The mining boom has also led many to turn to the industry to make a living. Many of the Congolese people work for established industrial mines and the larger mining companies, but the dark side of the mining is that many more work as artisanal miners. An artisanal miner or small-scale miner, ASM, is a miner who works independently and uses their own resources to mine minerals. The miners are not even officially employed by a mining company. Artisanal miners use their hands, basic tools, and low-tech equipment that extract minerals from the earth. They extract vital metals such as cobalt, tin, tungsten, gold, diamonds, gems, coal, and they dig in informal pits alongside thousands of other miners without professional large-scale equipment or safety equipment in inhumane conditions. Mine collapses are always potentially possible, and one fatal collapse away from a real possibility. Artisanal and small-scale mining are estimated to employ 200,000 people in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and over 1 million more are directly involved through trade and transport for far less than you can imagine.
More than half the world's supply comes from the DRC. 20% of that is mined by hand.
Over the past year, there have been at least 80 fatalities in these mines. But we also spoke to people who said that many accidents aren't reported, and bodies are just left buried underground.
This region has the potential to be one of the world's richest mining areas. There are dozens of large industrial copper and cobalt mines, but most people live in poverty and scrabble around for a living.
Cette année, je suis à l'époque, je n'ai pas de l'argent. C'est pourquoi je l'ai fait pour avoir quelque chose pour retourner à l'école. Bon, quand je gagne un peu, je mets petit à petit. Parce que c'est une année de maquis. Après tout cet argent-là, je vais partir avec à l'école.
C'est pourquoi tupende kazi tu zaidi kama kutakuwa mashajima ya makazi nyingine.
If you think that's bad, the pay isn't the most gut-wrenching issue.
Never in human history has there been more suffering that generated more profit and was linked to the lives of more people around the world, ever in history, than what's happening in the Congo right now.
In October of 2022, the United States Department of Labor added lithium-ion batteries to a list of goods produced by child labor. And this was specifically because of child mining in the country.
The cobalt that's being mined in the Congo is in every single lithium-ion rechargeable battery manufactured in the world today. Every smartphone, every tablet, every laptop, and crucially, every electric vehicle. So you and I, we can't function on a day-to-day basis without cobalt.
Cobalt economy has become the new shiny object that has a far-reaching effect than you can ever imagine. Congo's mineral resources are under heavy exploitation, just like past history, such as the infamous King Leopold II. As of now, I'm sure most of you have heard of Hitler and all the evil and all the destruction he has caused throughout history on the Jewish people.
This is London calling. Here is a news flash. The German radio has just announced that Hitler is dead.
Enter King Leopold II. Leopold II. His reign of colonial history relied on forced labor to create rubber, ivory, and minerals, generating riches for Belgians, but death and misery for Congolese people.
I don't know where that story came from. Probably from what King Leopold did to the Congolese, cutting off their hands if they don't meet their quota and killing them and killing their babies. And it's a significant thing because they used to start from the hand, and that's how they did it. That's how they used to scare the people that are there to make them work more. They cut off one hand and then they continue with the other. Even before killing them, they wanted to torture them.
By the early 1890s, a worldwide rubber boom was underway, kicked off by the invention of the inflatable bicycle tire, and spurred on later by the rise of the automobile. Leopold persuaded first the United States, then all the major nations of Western Europe to recognize a huge swath of Central Africa, roughly the same territory as the modern-day Democratic Republic of the Congo, as his personal property. He called it the Congo Free State. As crazy as it sounds, King Leopold convinced the entire world that he was going to do humanitarian work for the people of Congo with this Congo Free State. So this Belgian ruler, King Leopold, figured out a way to convince the United States and other Western Europe of his intention to take over Congo, but it was under the guise of humanitarian aid. It was the world's only private colony, and Leopold referred to himself as its proprietor. The reign of Leopold resulted in the killing of as many as 10 million Africans in Central Africa, and the desecration of their homes, life, and culture. So you see, this isn't anything new under the sun in regards to Congo and the Congolese people. This led to the Casement Report, and this report detailed the abuses of human beings in the Congo Free State.
Cobalt took off because it was started to be used in lithium-ion batteries to maximize their charge and stability. And it just so happens that the Congo, just as it was sitting on more than half the world's reserves of coltan and, of course, a lot of gold and diamonds and other things, is sitting on more cobalt than the rest of the planet combined. And it's in a small little patch of the Congo, southeastern corner, a part that used to be called Katanga. And before anybody knew what was happening, Chinese government, Chinese mining companies took control of almost all the big mines, and the local population has been displaced, is under duress, and they dig in absolutely subhuman, gut-wrenching conditions for $1 a day, feeding cobalt up the supply chain into all the phones, all the tablets, and especially electric cars.
What became known as the Belgian Congo remained a colony until the Democratic Republic of Congo gained its independence in 1960.
After having been colonized by the Belgians for 75 years, the Democratic Republic of Congo became independent on the 30th of June 1960 at 11 a.m. In 1885, this vast territory had become Belgian King Leopold II's private property. It's only in 1908 that it was formally a Belgian colony. In Kinshasa on Independence Day in 1960, Belgian King Baudouin I praised the work of the colonizers. Soon afterwards, the Congolese Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba responded, and he did not mince his words. He declared, "We were mocked, insulted and beaten morning, noon and night. Our wounds are still too fresh for us to drive them from our memory." For decades, the Belgians exploited Congolese workers in mines and in the rubber industry. They did so in such a cruel manner that historians say the total population fell from 20 million people in 1885 to just 10 million in 1908. Belgium says it gave Congo its independence, but in fact there had been several revolts in the years leading up to 1960. The Belgian authorities never attempted to form a Congolese elite. This meant that in 1960 very few people knew how to manage the nation's administrations. On the 5th of July, riots broke out and 2 provinces seceded. Patrice Lumumba was arrested in December and executed in January 1961. He was considered too close to the Soviet Empire, and many historians believe the CIA and Belgium were involved in his assassination.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima and destroyed its usefulness to the enemy. That bomb has more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. The Japanese began the war from the air at Pearl Harbor. With this bomb, we have now added a new and revolutionary increase in destruction to supplement the growing power of our armed forces. In their present form, these bombs are now in production, and even more powerful forms are in development. It is an atomic bomb, and with the fighting skill of which they are already well aware.
Looking back now, do you think that our country's use of the bomb was necessary?
I have not a very good answer to this question.
You and many like you who brought the bomb into being still seem to suffer, may I say, from a bad conscience about it.
In a strange twist of irony, the Congo is both blessed and cursed. There's little agriculture, and food along with goods are often imported, therefore leaving Congolese people at extreme poverty levels. So this explains why it's created a monster, not only from within the Congo, but outside it. Cobalt has created dreams of rags to riches that could change the lives for many Congolese, just as it done for the man who found it underneath his house. Cobalt has become such a popular mineral that locals are hunting for this buried treasure, this turquoise-like gold, even if that means they have to dig under their houses. Such as a Congolese man in 2014 who found this turquoise treasure under his home after digging to create a new toilet pit. So this man found cobalt under his house, and he made over $10,000, which is considered a small fortune in Congo, and then he skipped town later on with his riches. According to the World Bank, 75% of the country's population lives on less than $2 a day in the Congo. So, before you go judging, now you can see where the temptation lies, the temptation to dig underneath your own homes to get this treasure. In Congo, more than 85% of the people work tough jobs that pay next to nothing, and the cost of living is unbelievably high because the country's infrastructure has been ravaged by decades of dictatorship, civil war, and local corruption.
Is certainly ample documentation of M23 committing human rights violations, summary executions, rape, forced recruitment of people into the ranks. You've referenced some of this stuff yourself today. Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, the FDLR. They've been accused of killing hundreds of civilians, They've been accused of widespread sexual violence. President Tshisekedi has said that he opposed any alliance between the Congolese army and militias, but there are reports, credible reports, that document the supply of arms, the supply of ammunition, food, all to these groups. You know, why is your government backing these militias?
It's not only those outside Congo that have raped and pillaged resources, but also those within its borders, such as former Congolese President Joseph Kabila, who is under American sanctions.
I will do all I can in my power to fight for my country, and it feels like it was useless. It feels like nothing has changed, and those were years ago. Fast forward to 2023, and women are still being raped. Kids are people.
I've only talked about the bad. It almost seems as if it's all doom and gloom. But the hope is that with this green energy transition that most of the cobalt mined can be recycled sometime in the future, along with finding more efficient ways to extract cobalt. Because the world's going to do what it does, as the past predicates so.
The US, it's really difficult to get new mines built and permitted because there's a lot of environmental opposition and people just generally don't like mines in their backyard.
Some companies, though, are focused on an alternative source of materials. Instead of mining new materials, they're salvaging minerals from scraps and dead batteries.
In the United States right now, we have some lithium, but really no nickel, no cobalt, and on the grand scheme, relative to all the lithium that we're going to need, we don't have that much.
Ascend Elements takes used batteries, discharges them, and shreds them to recover the critical components like lithium, nickel, and cobalt, while separating out materials like copper, aluminum, and plastic. They call the remaining powdery material black mass. Through this process, Ascend says it recycles up to 98% of the critical battery materials and does it with a significantly smaller carbon footprint than mining and traditional cathode manufacturing methods. It's currently focused on making nickel manganese cobalt cathode precursors and active materials. Recycling may not enable the US to outpace Chinese production, but it could still be an important part of its domestic supply chain.
The question isn't really whether the US can catch up to China. It probably can't ever catch up really at this point, given how far ahead China is, but it will take many years for this to play out.
US President Biden, along with American officials, are confronting the environmental threat of climate crisis to drive the global clean energy economy forward. For example, in December 2022, Secretary Blinken signed a trilateral agreement between the United States, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and Zambia. This agreement supports the commitment between the DRC and Zambia to jointly develop a supply chain for electric vehicle batteries. Tesla, the automaker, is even attempting to stop using cobalt, partly to avoid the reputational risk of dealing with Congolese minerals. Other car makers would like to use machines, but even if Tesla and others decide to get cobalt only from industrial mines, where machines do the digging, the metal is often mixed and crushed up in smelters in China, so it'll be hard to know where the cobalt really came from.
Thanks for rolling up in the CyberTruck too. And it's different in real life. Like, you see it in person. Like, you see, images are just, we were talking about it outside, you just can't contextualize them.
Yes.
Like, it looks so odd that you have to see it in the flesh.
It looks like computer graphics in reality.
Yeah, it's the coolest looking fucking production car that's ever been made.
Extractivism is a removal of large quantities of raw or natural materials, and it's a short-sighted model for economic gains. Benefits are often detrimental to the people who still live in these communities. That's what you're seeing around the world with this green energy movement. It's almost impossible for you to call something green without knowing the genesis of it all. Although it has abundant natural resources, Africa still remains the world's poorest and least developed continent, which is a result of a variety of causes.
Mr. President, DR Congo has a lot of natural resources, minerals, for example, cobalt, 70% of them around the world are right there in DR Congo, also gold, diamond, copper, you name it. Have these resources been a blessing and a curse? And if so, if a curse, how do you plan to, in your tenure, reverse this resource curse?
Je ne dirais pas malédiction, mais je dirais à la base de nos malheurs, parce que malheureusement, nous n'avons pas eu de politique anticipative. Nous nous contentions de l'extraction et nous pensions qu'avec l'argent sorti de là, ça suffisait pour développer le pays. Aujourd'hui, nous nous rendons compte que sans valeur ajoutée, ces minerais...
But China, it dominates and controls mining production on the ground. And what I've seen with my own eyes and what any Congolese person living in the Katanga region will tell you is they pay no heed to the human rights of the Congolese people, and they pay no heed to the environmental protection. Mining companies, especially the Chinese ones, dump toxic effluents in the earth, the air, the water. I have seen villages with children playing in the dirt covered in sulfuric acid powder that is wafting over the entire countryside from mineral processing plants at Chinese mining companies. And as I've mentioned a few times, millions of trees have been clear cut. And I never met anyone in the Congo who said they saw anyone planting one tree to replace them. The waterways, lakes, and rivers have also been polluted. So fish stocks are polluted, animal stocks are polluted, vegetables are polluted. Everyone there is being slowly poisoned to death by cobalt mining operations. That's the truth that the stakeholders at the top of the chain don't want us to know, but that's the truth the Congolese people are desperate to share.
We live in a world of modern-day slavery. A world where our own pursuit of technology has come at the expense of others.
Is there another source of cobalt in the world that's ethically supplied?
No.